Hello there, I'm Ed Butler and welcome to Business Daily. Today, on an Africa-centred programme, the former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan gives us his vision of an end to poverty.
I would hope that by 2020, the kind of extreme poverty that worry most of us will be an issue of history.
Also, war, militants, mayhem, but forget all that. There is money to be made in Somalia.
Whilst Somalia's had the issues, it doesn't change the fact that the country needs rebuilding. It doesn't change the fact that there are great natural resources within Somalia.
That's all coming up in Business Daily from the BBC. So are celebrations in order? Well, maybe they are. In Africa, at least. The world's poorest continent now happens to be the world's fastest growing as well. Never in the half-century since it won independence from colonial powers has Africa had it quite so good, with an average of 6% growth in countries south of the Sahara. The boom has been driven by agricultural goods and commodities like gold, copper and, of course, oil. The president of the World Bank, Jim Yong Kim, has bravely targeted an end to extreme poverty on the continent by the year 2030. But is he speaking too soon? Poverty, after all, has actually been rising in some countries. I asked a man who's set a few bold targets himself in his time, the campaigner and former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan. Did he see recent economic success translating into genuine hope for ordinary Africans?
Many African countries have done well. Growth has been robust, but this growth has tended to expand the gap between the rich and the poor. We need to take steps to ensure that not only does Africa earn a fair share from the exploitation of its natural resources, but the revenues derived therefrom are invested in the economy to ensure that the people do benefit and you don't have this growing gap.
Yeah, to be specific, I understand rates of poverty have actually increased in countries like Zambia and Nigeria. These are countries with, robust growth, but it's not helping the poor people.
That's why we are making the point that they should really focus on poverty alleviations and investing in the people. And today everybody talks of sovereign wealth fund. The moment one finds oil, yes, you need to save for a rainy day, but you also need to invest. Invest in your people, invest in society, invest in infrastructure and energy to be able to grow your economy.
How do you explain, though, countries like those two, Nigeria and Zambia, how do you explain that poverty is getting worse at a time of such decent growth?
I think it comes back to the issue I raised. Poverty could get worse even when you are earning good returns. If you are not investing the money in your people, if you are not investing in education and health, if you are not creating jobs, you will run into difficulties.
But if growth doesn't fix it, how do you see it as happening in practical terms, given the political realities that exist now? Is it going to be about some kind of global pressure?
Global pressure alone won't do it. It will be pressure from the peoples of these countries. The people will demand more. They cannot sit back and allow their leaders to take them for granted. And we've seen recently on the continent, not always ending up in the ideal way, that where leaders fail to lead, the people can pressure them to do what is right, and we can never ignore that.
There's been this very eye-catching announcement from the head of the World Bank. He's predicted an end to extreme poverty by 2030. Do you see setting expectations like that one as realistic?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity of discussing this with the head of the World Bank, but let me say, as someone who was quite involved with the establishment of the Millennium Development Goals, setting that goal to reduce poverty by 50% by 2015, improving health, education for girls and all, really offered us, for the first time, a global framework for development.
Even if many of those goals are not going to be met?
You may not meet all the goals, but tremendous progress has been made. Millions have been lifted out of poverty. There are more girls in school today. Child mortality is falling. clean drinking water, we are doing better. So even if you don't get it 100%, but given the progress that has been made and the pressure that has been put on governments, because these are goals that everyone understands. The man in the street in Delhi or Bogota or the woman in Accra, they know what it means to say send this young girl to primary school or make sure we have clean drinking water. So it has really been a very solid momentum behind the progress that we've made over the last 10 odd years or so. And so the targets are not themselves a problem, but the real efforts have to be made to meet them. You know, it's a dream. The World Bank idea that by 2030 you would eliminate all poverty is a dream, but I think it's worth dreaming. Without a dream, you won't go anywhere. When I started the Millennium Development Goals, lots of people dismissed it as a pipe dream, that Mr. Secretary General, you're dreaming. And I heard it often enough that I called the Archbishop of Canterbury, because they quoted the Bible to me to ask him, what does the biblical quotation, the poor shall always be amongst us, mean? You know, and he clarified, said, it doesn't mean that you should forget them. It doesn't mean you should not bother about helping them. But in fact, what it means is, it's such a big problem, and they will always be amongst us, and we should be prepared to wake up each morning ready to fight to improve their situation. My target, we looked at 2015, and as you say, we are not going to meet all the goals. I would hope that by 2020, the kind of extreme poverty that worry most of us will be an issue of history.
The thoughts there of the former UN Secretary-General, Kofi Annan.